The night was calm, but I wasn't. The CB radio in my truck crackled with static as I rolled down an empty stretch of Arizona highway. The sky was an inky black, with the occasional glint of distant stars. I'd taken a late-night delivery, a long haul of construction equipment to a site upstate. It was a no-questions-asked kind of deal, but the pay was too good to pass up. The loneliness of the road never bothered me. In fact, I preferred it. The hum of the engine, the rhythmic bounce of the rig on the road, and the occasional chatter on the radio were all the company I needed. Tonight, though, there was an odd weight in the air, like something was pressing down on me. It started small lights in the distance, faint and flickering. I thought they were headlights at first, but they didn't move like headlights. They floated almost like fireflies, but larger, more deliberate. I slowed the truck, squinting to make sense of them, when the CB burst to life. Breaker, breaker, this is Big Haas. Any drivers out on Route 89, do you copy? Over. I grabbed the mic, this is Roadrunner. Copy, Big Haas. What's the word? Over. Big Haas's voice was shaky. You see anything weird out there tonight? Over. Weird how? He paused. The silence was louder than the static. Something's been following me for miles, man. Can't shake it. Like lights, but not. You know what I mean? Over. I glanced back at the road. The lights had disappeared. I hear you. I saw something earlier, but it's gone now. You alright, Big Haas? Over. No. Hell no, man. Something ain't right. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving only static. I slowed the truck further, a creeping unease settling into my gut. Then I saw it. The figure on the side of the road. It was hunched over, wrapped in what looked like tattered clothes. The figure wasn't waving or walking, just standing there, motionless. As I passed, I caught a glimpse of its face in the rearview mirror, pale, hollow-eyed. It turned its head to watch me go, its neck moving unnaturally, like it was on a swivel. I hit the accelerator. Big Haas, you there? Over. I barked into the mic. Nothing. Just that godforsaken static. For the first time in years, I felt the kind of fear that grips your chest and squeezes until you can't breathe. I cranked up the speed, the trailer behind me rattling as I pushed the rig harder. That's when I noticed the lights again. Not in the distance this time. In my mirrors. They weren't headlights. They were too close together, too erratic, like two glowing eyes hovering above the asphalt. And they were gaining on me. I slammed the CB. Any drivers out there? I need backup. Something's on my tail. Over. The radio crackled, but no voices came through. The lights grew brighter, closer. My heartbeat was in my throat as I took the next bend too fast, the trailer lurching dangerously behind me. Whatever was chasing me didn't care about the curves or the speed. And then, they vanished. I let out a shaky breath, easing off the accelerator just enough to regain control. But the relief didn't last. Ahead, on the side of the road, was another figure. This one was taller, its limbs unnaturally long. It stood beneath one of the few working streetlights, its shadow stretching impossibly far. As I passed, its head turned slowly, those same glowing eyes burning into my soul. I heard the whisper then. Not from the CB. Not from outside. From inside the cab. Don't stop. My knuckles went white on the wheel as I pressed the pedal to the floor. Whatever this was, it wasn't human. I didn't know what I was hauling. Didn't know why they'd picked me for this run. But one thing was clear. Someone, or something, didn't want me to make it to my destination. And the night was far from over. The highway stretched ahead like an endless black ribbon, and I was a lone ant crawling on its surface. I glanced at the dashboard clock, 2:47 a.m., the hour of ghosts and devils my dad used to say. I'd always laughed it off, but tonight, the joke didn't feel so funny. The lights were gone. The figures in the distance, nothing but a memory I desperately wanted to forget. I kept my foot on the gas, pushing the rig faster than I should have on this road. But the whisper lingered in the cab, repeating itself like a broken record in the back of my mind. Don't stop. That wasn't the plan. Stopping out here wasn't an option. I reached for the coffee thermos tucked into the cup holder, my hand trembling just enough to spill a few drops as I unscrewed the lid. The lukewarm liquid didn't do much to steady me, but at least it kept me from looking in the mirrors again. The CB crackled, and for a second, hope sparked. "Big Hoss, that you?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Nothing." I was about to set the mic down when the static shifted. A low, guttural sound came through the speakers, like someone breathing right into the mic. "Roadrunner." The voice was wrong. It sounded like someone had dragged the word through gravel and broken glass. My blood ran cold. "Who is this?" More static. Then, like nails on a chalkboard, "You can't outrun it?" I ripped the CB cord from its socket, silencing the voice. My heart was hammering against my ribs, and the palms of my hands were slick against the steering wheel. That's when the first thud hit the side of the truck. It was loud, like something heavy slamming into the trailer. The whole rig shuddered, pulling slightly to the right. I fought to keep it steady, my pulse roaring in my ears. Thud. Another hit, this time harder. I checked the side mirror instinctively, even though I knew I shouldn't. Nothing. Thud thud. It was moving now, whatever it was, slamming against the trailer in intervals, as if trying to get in. I cursed under my breath, my knuckles aching from how tightly I was gripping the wheel. "Whatever you are, you're not getting in here." I reached over, flipping the switch for the cargo lock. The trailer doors clicked audibly, the mechanism engaging with a comforting finality. If nothing else, I'd keep whatever was out there from getting to the load. The thuds stopped. For a moment I thought maybe it had given up. But then the rig lurched violently to the left, the tires on one side skidding dangerously close to the shoulder. Something was climbing the trailer. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. The weight shifting, the way the truck groaned under the strain. And then, the sound. A scraping like claws raking across metal. I hit the high beams, hoping the light would scare off whatever was up there. But the road ahead remained empty, devoid of any sign of life. The scratching grew louder, moving toward the cab. "Don't stop. Don't stop." The whisper wasn't just in my head anymore. It was louder, insistent, echoing through the cab like a command. The scraping stopped, replaced by silence so thick it felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. I dared to glance at the passenger side window, and that's when I saw it. A face, pale, elongated, and pressed against the glass, its eyes glowing the same eerie light I'd seen before. Its mouth was wide, impossibly wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth that didn't belong in anything human. It smiled. I swerved instinctively, the truck fishtailing as the tires struggled to regain traction. When I looked back at the window, the face was gone. But I knew it wasn't over. The engine roared as I pushed the rig faster, the needle on the speedometer climbing higher than I'd ever dared before. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't getting me tonight. Then I saw the bridge ahead. It was old, one of those narrow, rusting monstrosities that seemed more like a relic than part of a functional highway. The signs were clear: weight limit, 10 tons. My rig, fully loaded, was at least twice that. But there was no turning back. "Don't stop." I barreled onto the bridge, the steel beams creaking under the weight. Halfway across, the thud started again, this time coming from the roof of the cab. "Come on! Come on!" I muttered. My eyes locked on the end of the bridge. The thuds grew faster, louder, until it felt like the whole truck was shaking. And then, as I reached the other side, they stopped. I didn't slow down. Not until I was miles past the bridge. The lights of a small truck stop coming into view. I pulled in, my hands still trembling as I killed the engine. The parking lot was empty, save for a couple of other rigs parked haphazardly near the diner. I climbed out, my legs nearly giving out beneath me, and walked to the back of the trailer. The locks were still in place, the doors untouched. But as I turned to head inside the diner, I saw them. 2 glowing eyes, watching me from the treeline. And then they disappeared. The fluorescent lights of the diner buzzed like an insect swarm as I stepped inside. The place was mostly empty, save for a bleary-eyed waitress behind the counter and a lone trucker nursing a coffee in the corner booth. I could still feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, making my hands tremble as I grabbed a stool at the counter. "What'll it be, hon?" the waitress asked, her voice carrying the tired warmth of someone used to graveyard shifts. Coffee, I muttered. My throat was dry, and my voice cracked. Black. She gave me a long look, her eyes narrowing slightly. You all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. I forced a weak smile, shaking my head. Just tired. Long haul. She didn't press further, pouring the coffee and sliding it across the counter. I wrapped my hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep into my chilled fingers. The lone trucker in the corner was staring at me. His face was obscured by shadows, but I could feel his eyes boring into me. I glanced his way, and he raised his mug in a silent salute before returning to his drink. I should have been relieved to be off the road, but the unease hadn't left me. The glowing eyes in the treeline lingered in my mind, like a bad afterimage. And there was something else, a subtle but nagging feeling that I wasn't alone in the diner. I shook my head, trying to push the thought away, and reached for the CB clipped to my belt. Plugging it back in at the truck had felt too dangerous, but now, inside these walls, I needed answers. I flipped the switch. Static. Breaker, breaker, I said, my voice low. This is Roadrunner. Anyone out there? Over. For a long moment, nothing. Then, faint and distorted, a voice crackled through. Roadrunner. It's still out there. My blood went cold. Who is this? Big Haas, is that you? Over. The line hissed with static, the voice cutting in and out. Don't go back. It's watching, waiting. The signal died completely, leaving me gripping the CB like a lifeline. The waitress had stopped wiping the counter and was staring at me. You okay, Han? Yeah. I lied, tucking the CB back into my pocket. The door to the diner creaked open. A man stepped inside, tall and gaunt, his face obscured by the brim of a battered hat. He was wearing a long, dust-covered coat that hung loose on his wiry frame. His boots clunked heavily against the tiled floor as he made his way to the counter, sitting 2 stools down from me. The waitress smiled nervously. What can I get you? Just water, he said, his voice low and gravelly. I tried not to stare, but something about him set every nerve in my body on edge. He didn't look at me, didn't look at the waitress, didn't look at anything. He just sat there, motionless, his hands resting on the counter like they didn't belong to him. The waitress placed a glass of water in front of him and quickly retreated to the kitchen. He turned his head slowly, and for the first time I saw his face. Pale, hollow-eyed, and too familiar. It was the face I'd seen in the passenger window. I froze, my mind racing. How could he have gotten here before me? What did he want? You're carrying something you shouldn't, he said, his voice low and steady. What the hell are you talking about? I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. His lips curled into a thin smile. You think it's just equipment in that trailer? The room felt colder, the fluorescent lights buzzing louder. I glanced at the other trucker in the corner booth, but he was gone. What's in the trailer? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man's smile widened, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too jagged. Something that doesn't belong here. Something that never should have been disturbed. My stomach churned. The no-questions-asked deal suddenly felt like a pact with the devil. You should leave it, he continued. Abandon the truck. Walk away. It's the only way you'll make it through the night. The door creaked again, and I turned instinctively, expecting another shadowy figure. But the door wasn't open. It was still shut, the wind outside rattling against the glass. When I turned back, the man was gone. The glass of water sat untouched on the counter, a faint smudge where his fingers had been. I shot out of my seat, throwing a crumpled bill on the counter. Thanks for the coffee, I muttered, not waiting for a response. The waitress peeked out from the kitchen, her eyes wide. You okay, Han? Yeah, I said, heading for the door. The parking lot was silent, the faint hum of the diner's neon sign the only sound. My rig sat where I'd left it, untouched, but the unease was stronger now. As I climbed into the cab, I noticed something new. Scratched into the driver's side door, in long, jagged letters, was a single word. Run. I didn't run. I should have. Every instinct screamed at me to abandon the truck, to leave it and walk into the dark desert. But there was something worse than fear driving me now. Curiosity. I had to know. What was in the trailer? What had crawled onto my rig? And what was that man in the diner? I climbed into the cab and slammed the door shut, locking it behind me. My hands were shaking as I turned the key. The engine roared to life, filling the night with its mechanical growl. The road ahead was a straight shot to the drop-off point. 20 miles. I'd make it there, dump the cargo, and never take another no-questions-asked job again. The first 5 miles were uneventful, but the air inside the cab felt heavy, oppressive. The CB radio was silent, and the mirrors reflected nothing but the emptiness of the desert night. Then the trailer shifted. I felt it in the cab, the weight shifting, a deep, guttural groan of the steel frame as if something inside was moving. I gripped the wheel tighter. "Stay calm," I muttered to myself. "It's just the load settling. That's all." But I didn't believe it. A loud bang echoed through the night, followed by another. Something was pounding against the inside of the trailer, hard enough to shake the entire rig. "Not now," I hissed, my foot pressing harder on the accelerator. The pounding grew louder, more frantic, as if whatever was inside knew I was close to the drop-off. Then came the sound that made my blood run cold. A deep, inhuman growl that vibrated through the cab. I glanced at the side mirror, and that's when I saw it. The lights were back. Those twin, glowing orbs, floating impossibly close behind the trailer. They weren't headlights. They were eyes. I slammed the CB mic. "Anyone on Route 89? This is Roadrunner. I need backup. Something's on me. Over." Static. And then a voice, faint and distorted. "It's too late. You shouldn't have taken the job." I threw the mic down, my heart hammering in my chest. The road ahead was empty, but the pounding in the trailer and the growling behind me were unbearable. The drop-off point came into view, a desolate yard surrounded by a chain-link fence, lit by a single flickering floodlight. I barreled through the open gate, my brakes screeching as I brought the rig to a stop. The silence that followed was deafening. I climbed out of the cab, flashlight in hand, and made my way to the back of the trailer. My breath fogged in the cold night air, and the ground beneath my boots felt like it was vibrating. The padlock on the trailer was intact, but something inside was pressing against the doors, bulging the steel outward. I hesitated, every fiber of my being screaming at me to leave, to abandon the rig and never look back. But I couldn't. I unlocked the padlock and swung the doors open. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating the contents of the trailer. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. The cargo wasn't construction equipment. It was a massive, pulsating cocoon, its surface slick and glistening. The growling was louder now, emanating from within the cocoon, accompanied by the sound of something shifting inside. I stepped back, my heart pounding. The cocoon split open. A creature emerged, tall, gaunt, its skin pale and stretched tight over its skeletal frame. Its glowing eyes locked onto mine, and its mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. I stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. "What the hell?" The creature leapt from the trailer with impossible speed, landing a few feet away from me. It tilted its head, studying me like a predator sizing up its prey. And then it spoke. "You delivered me." Its voice was a low rumble, filled with malice and hunger. I turned and ran, my boots pounding against the gravel as I sprinted back to the cab. The creature didn't follow. Not yet. I climbed into the truck and started the engine, the roar of the diesel drowning out the sound of my own panicked breaths. As I pulled out of the yard, I glanced in the mirror one last time. The creature stood in the middle of the yard, watching me. Its glowing eyes burned into my soul, and I knew it wasn't done with me. I didn't stop driving until I reached the next town, the sun rising behind me. The rig was gone. The job was over. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd unleashed something into the world, something that couldn't be put back. And the whisper, soft and distant, still echoed in my mind. "Don't stop.